All right, welcome back. Bleav in Rams, episode 163.
Finally.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute, but we are back, and we're here to basically talk about the latest Rams news. We got some new segments that we drew up, and it should be fun. Cam, how the hell are you, my guy?
I'm doing well. It's nice to do Bleav in Rams. This is where we started, Jake. I know for some of the folks, hey, y'all haven't been recording the past 2 to 3 weeks. It's off season. We want to give y'all some quality stuff, and we need a little rest, right? We need a little rest, Jake. So we're back. We're back on the horn, and I think between now and when the season starts, it might be a little bit where we're recording every 2 to 3 weeks. So be patient with us. We're going to give you some quality stuff, but we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today.
Absolutely, Cam. And, I think it's important because, I have people that have asked me like, hey, is there any chance that you could be like another podcast and do everyday Rams content? And I'm like, no. And here's why. Here's why. First off, we kind of already do that with the NFL. So we already, we spent a lot of time focusing on that. But secondly, if you're focusing on just one team, and you're doing it during the deadest part of the offseason. Like we're talking this, mid-May to like July is going to be absolutely dead as far as news. And we're lucky the Rams made a couple moves to give us a little bit of a, But it's one of those things, man, when people ask me like, why don't you guys just go live every day? I'm like, you don't want Rams content every day. Because if you had a Rams podcast every single day,
you wouldn't watch us.
It would be dry. It would be like, I remember in 2008 when it's like, what else do you want us to talk about?
Greatest show on turf. Like, we can't talk about it, but people want to talk about what's going on now, right? Like the Kurt Warner and his time, Marshall Faulk, like it's great, but we want to talk about fresh stuff, new stuff, and like Jake said, we got some good stuff that happened these past couple of weeks, and that we felt like, hey, let's build them up and let's share them when we talk about it. But we don't want stale content, my guy.
No stale content, evergreen content. I mean, things get stale over time, but not evergreen stuff. No. And I mean, look, I'm of the belief that content that's put out there always has value, because I think it's cool to go back and look at things like, our take during just the worst part of this Sean McVay era. And that was when we first started. And we can go back and we can look at that and, compare and contrast to what we do this year. And I think that's kind of special, maybe take notes and maybe we shouldn't have said that. Maybe that was being a little too negative. Maybe we were playing too much into it. Maybe we were using too much, copium, and, we were, like, I don't know. I mean, that's the cool thing. So I don't really buy the idea that all content becomes stale. And I think to those historical Rams fans, I think they'll like the plan at the end of this. And the end of this is that we're going to throw in a featured Ram of the Day segment. I don't even know if Cam knew that, but I'm telling him now, we're going to do it. We do it over on, it's a little different. We do it on Off the Edge birthday segment. So we say happy birthday to a NFL player, maybe not necessarily famous, but just, kind of pick a player each day that we do it. But
show some love.
Yeah, but for featured Ram, it doesn't necessarily mean a birthday. It could be anybody. And so, we can end with that, but
I like that.
We also are pretty much going to start most of these, because we have to start them this way, with the fact that BetOnline is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL, right to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use your promo code Bleav to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. Cam, we're bringing back burning question because, quite honestly, I'm tired of not having it. So the burning question: the Rams add Bucks former 5th round pick and Super Bowl champion wide receiver Tyler Johnson to the roster. What on earth could be his role on this team, Cam?
Pass catcher, Jake, right? First down maker. You talk about Tyler Johnson coming from the Buccaneers, and we talked about this before the Rams podcast on this Bleav in Rams show. They have a relationship. I went from the Buccaneers to the Rams twice, back and forth, like a mother and father relationship that just got divorced. I go back and forth between these teams. I do think there's a great relationship between Jason Light, Les Snead, Baker Mayfield going from the Rams to the Buccaneers, right? I'm sure the Buccaneers saw his success, right? 48 hours off the plane, winning a football game, went viral throughout the sports industry. Buccaneers took note of that. When it comes to the kicker game, right? When it comes to the kickers, the Buccaneers and the Rams have traded kickers, Gay and different players. They flip-flopped and they passed things along. And then with Tyler Johnson, he was at the Texans beforehand this past year, but before he's with Tom Brady, won a Super Bowl, and the year before that did really well coming out of Minnesota. So Tyler Johnson, the comp I have for him, Jake, we're not really a comp, but I think his position was, hey, Chris Godwin gets hurt. Who else is going to catch that football and be a possession receiver? So I got Tyler Johnson. I watched some of his plays recently, and Jake, he's just a trusted guy. I think when you see Tom Brady throw him the football, he's someone who's going to catch it. I think Aaron Rodgers mentioned this about the Packers receivers, right? A couple of years ago. He's like, hey, if y'all aren't catching the football, you won't play. I think a guy with like Tyler Johnson, you can't say that to him because I think he catches the football. He knows where he's supposed to be, and he's a trusted receiver. So I like him, Jake, as a Rams football catcher. Like I said, he's been seasoned through with Tom Brady and being at the Buccaneers and win the championship. I think he makes his Rams teams better. What do you think?
Well, this is a guy I really liked in the draft out of Minnesota. He's born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 24 years old. This is somebody, his last 2 years at Minnesota, 2018 and 2019, playing both 13 games. So this is a guy that stayed healthy, right? Had over 1,000 yards and had 13 and 12 touchdowns in those years. Look, yeah. Tyler Johnson has the exact size that if you could build any receiver in the NFL, just to build a default baseline of what you would want a receiver to look like. I'm not like one of those size means everything type of guys. I love the short kings, let's be honest here. Right. But the 6'1", 200-pound wide receiver is the perfect size for the position. It is literally chef's kiss. And that is what Tyler Johnson is, although he's 206, but that's not a big deal. That's good.
Yeah.
So...
And Jake, really quick, before you move forward on that, that's the chef's kiss piece, right? For people who haven't been watching our Off the Edge show, but we talked about wide receivers and we talked about the top 10 wide receivers, the best wide receivers in the league. They're around that range. So I just want to give people the context, for your statement on that is most of the great receivers, the Diggs, other players in the league that are elite are around that range. So I'll pass it back to you, Jake, but I just want to provide some context for people who don't know kind of what we've been talking about here.
Absolutely. And I think, seeing a guy like, say, Calvin Johnson come in the NFL kind of spoiled us a little bit. Like, 6'5" receiver. But in reality, I don't think there is such a thing as being too tall. There's a reason why 6'10" guys aren't playing wide receiver. You would think, theoretically, I want, the center in the NBA to be my wide receiver. Well, you don't because the speed isn't quite there. And keep in mind, when you're talking about those routes where you're running a hook route or, you're trying to quickly move and stop on a dime and not a nickel, a dime. And what I mean by that is just immediately and in a short area, that becomes more difficult the taller you are. So it's great to see a guy like DK Metcalf that can run like a freak at 6'3", but for every one of those guys, you find a guy who's 6'7" who needs to move to tight end because he's quite honestly not agile enough to play wide receiver. So brings us to our point. I like the 6'1", 200-pound guy. The reason being is we see a lot of 6'1", but 170-pound. I mean, we saw it. My number one wide receiver in this past draft went in the third round, Jalen Hyatt, 77 pounds or whatever. You have these like string beans coming in the NFL. They're tall, but they're not really filled out. And that's fine because for a guy like, Jalen Hyatt, you're not going to be using him like Deebo Samuel.
Right.
You want him to go run by guys. You don't want him to run through guys. But Tyler Johnson can break tackles. Tyler Johnson can hold on to the damn ball. If you throw it over the middle, he gets hit, walloped in between two defenders. He might even break that tackle, might break that contact. And so, I think that the common misconception here, especially with Tyler Johnson, is that, okay, for his career, Cam, going into this year, he's got 48 catches, 529 yards, and 2 touchdowns since he was drafted in the 2020 draft in the 5th round. And what I would say...
And a Super Bowl.
And a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
What I will say is this. I think it's very easy for people to say he's a Jag. He couldn't make it with the Texans. The Raiders didn't even want him. The Rams spent about 10 days... So he was, I think it was the 15th is when the Raiders got rid of him. So March 15th or May 15th, 2023, the Rams signed him 15 days later, May 30th. So that is interesting because the Rams, I'm taking notice about these guys the Rams are adding because there's not many. We'll talk about another one in a sec. But when you go out and you have an off season like they did, and they only brought back guys that they, had previously, or they didn't sign anybody, it definitely strikes an interest. Like, okay, what does this guy have? Like, but also
a Super Bowl.
Yeah. But also think about this, and I think this is also very important. The Rams wide receiver room isn't star-studded. It's got Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, we like him a lot, had an 800-yard season his second year. Really big step in the right direction. Then he's dealing with injuries almost the entire third season. And now here we are. He hasn't had a 1,000-yard season. He's never been a wide receiver 2. I mean, there's always been a guy in front of him.
Yep.
So now he has to be a wide receiver 2. So does he step up? I mean, I think he's going to, but if he doesn't, that's open. Then you have Tutu Atwell, who I'm very excited about. I know you are as well. He moves his number to 5, so he takes on, those are big shoes to fill. Jalen Ramsey right there. But look, like, he hasn't really gotten a lot of opportunity, but Tutu at the end of the year looked really good. However, a lot of people in this fan base can't get over the fact that they picked Creed Humphrey or they picked Tutu Atwell instead of Creed Humphrey. And I think Tutu will always have that hang over his head. So then you look at 5th round pick Puka Nacua, who now everyone seems to think this guy is going to be wide receiver 3, maybe even wide receiver 2. Temper your expectations with rookie wide receivers, especially in the Rams offense, because Van Jefferson didn't even have 300 yards his rookie year. And another thing, temper your expectations with rookie 5th round wide receivers at the end of the 5th round. Okay, these guys are not a guarantee. And so when I see a guy like Tyler Johnson, and I don't want to forget about Ben Skoranek, who I like, and can play fullback, can play tight end, can play wide receiver. I don't think McCutcheon makes the roster, if I'm being honest with you. This was that signal. When they went out and got Tyler Johnson, that told me all I need to know about the receiver room. They like Van. They like Tutu Atwell. They love Cooper Kupp. But we need another guy. And this guy is 24 years old, 5th round pick. They probably liked him in the draft. I got to tell you, I think he has a chance to be wide receiver 4 when the season starts. I think
who is this, Jake? Who's wide receiver 4?
Tyler Johnson.
Oh, okay.
I think Tyler Johnson is 100%, no doubt about it, going to make the 53. But I think for the people saying that this is Nacua, no. I think he's ahead of Nacua. I think he's going to be ahead of McCutcheon. And I think really the battle we should be looking at, not Atwell, because when we try to say Atwell's battling Ben Skoranek, you have to realize how ridiculous that sounds. Atwell is a 5'9", $170 guy. He's not battling Skoranek. They play different roles as wide receivers. He's going to be more of that, the shifty deep threat guy that can work on those quick slants. Whereas, Skoranek is going to get his face in the fan. He's going to, work as a blocker. He's going to play that fullback, the pseudo fullback that he was playing. They're not the same. So when I look at, say Tyler Johnson, he's filling his own role. Kupp is already filled. Van Jefferson's going to be 2. And then Tutu Atwell is going to be 3 Skoranek, right? Depending on how they work. I think it's going to be rotation basis. 4, to me, true 4th receiver is going to be Tyler Johnson, who, in my opinion, is not, he's not a superstar, but he reminds me of Jason Avant. Jason Avant was important for those Eagles teams, and then he went to the Chiefs. But Avant was always known for being that possession receiver. And I think Johnson can be better than just a possession guy, but his role in 2023 for the Rams is possession receiver. This is a guy that's going to be utilized in the quick slant game. Maybe you look at him on 3rd down now, instead of forcing it to Cooper Kupp, forcing it to Tyler Higbee, which teams are going to telegraph because, well, they saw your tendencies last year. They're going to look at, the Rams are going to be able to shift all their attention, or some of their attention, to Tyler Johnson. I think he plays more than people are saying. Cam, he's 100% making the roster, no doubt about it. And one last thing before I pass it over to you, can't forget how the Bucks got to the Super Bowl. No disrespect to the Bucks at all, but that pass interference call on Kevin King, our guy Tyler Johnson drew that.
Yeah. Jake, you say he's going to be receiver number 4. I think if Van Jefferson doesn't watch out, Jake, we talked about that number 2 spot. He's never filled it. This is going to be his first year. Tyler Johnson is coming off with a chip on the shoulder. He won a Super Bowl in, 2020? You mentioned the Raiders, the Texans. Like, he's been sitting out for a while, Jake. I went and looked up his stats. He's been sitting out for a while, so I'm sure he's healthy. I'm sure he's ready to roll, and I'm sure he saw this Rams offense. It's like, ooh, Allen's gone. Let me see what I can do. So I'm gonna say that Tyler Johnson's gonna make that. He's gonna compete for that number 2 receiver role, Jake. I'm just gonna say it right now. Just from my experience playing football, when people moving and changing, I think, when it comes to those openings, it's not solidified. There's a new offensive coordinator. I think Tyler Johnson makes this roster, and not only that, but jumps up into that 2nd or 3rd receiver role. You mentioned Puka Nacua. He, Mr. Football, right, coming out of Utah, Gatorade Player of the Year. I mentioned he reminds me a little bit of Cooper Kupp, just being smart, the way he runs and the way he carries himself on the football field. Big playmaking ability. I think Puka is great for Cooper, because I think Cooper's going to say, hey, you remind me of me, young man. Let me take you under my wing, right? Similar how Bobby Woods did to Cooper Kupp, right? I remember Cooper Kupp came to the Rams. Jake, he was kind of like that, but not really. And I do think, working with Robert Woods, seeing Robert Woods' success, Cooper Kupp elevated his game. He was able to tap into that untapped potential. Triple Crown winner, MVP of the Rams, MVP of the league as a receiver. So I think that's great. But I do think Puka Nacua can have that potential as well if he develops properly for the Rams. But you can't really expect these rookie wide receivers to step in and make these big plays. They're going to come across some of these cornerbacks, Jake. They're going to put their hands in their neck, right, and shove them into the ground. So I think Puka Nacua, definitely make sure that you're catching those punts, right, making sure you're explosive on that punt return game, special teams game. But I do think that, going back to Tyler Johnson, I think he's going to make his way into that starting lineup, Jake. Like I said, just watching this film with Tom Brady, he's definitely licking his chops. He's ready to go. You talk about Lance McCutcheon, right, not being able to make the roster. I see what you mean there. I see what you mean. I'm looking at the wide receivers, and Tutu Atwell being the burner he is. Lance McCutcheon is not that guy. And then let's not forget, Tyler Higbee is the other receiving option as well. And so, yeah, it's looking slim for Lance, Jake. It's looking slim for Lance. But one thing I will say is, don't sleep on guys like Lance, because if he does not make this roster and he goes to a division rival, Jake, that can be a problem. And you see him show up for the Seattle Seahawks or even for the Cardinals, Jake, I'm not going to, or even the 49ers. That's going to piss me off, Jake. If I see Lance McCutcheon go to the 49ers and find success out there, that's really going to piss me off. So in saying that, I really do hope that the Rams really evaluate this wide receiver room and make the best decision, because we need guys that can catch that football. So, but yeah, I like the Tyler Johnson move there.
Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, I think with McCutcheon, it's going to be all about, at least in my opinion, it's going to be all about special teams. Yeah. I just think last year, when this team needed a spark and the receivers were banged up, everybody was banged up, and this guy couldn't find his way on the field. I mean, to me, that's a signal. It was the signal that Jacob Harris wasn't him. And sure enough, he's gone. Now he's with the Jaguars. I think it's a signal that Lance McCutcheon, really great performance in preseason, but that might be all it is, man. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest here. Preseason, when you get to the third and fourth quarter, that's USFL. That's AAF. That's, XFL. I mean, Lance McCutcheon, if he doesn't make this team, should really consider going out and getting a job and getting good tape out there with USFL and XFL. And that's not a knock on him. I just think there's a lot of opportunity for these guys now with the spring leagues.
And I want to add, that's a great point, Jacob. What I will add, though, is the Rams offense was hideous last year. Liam Cohen.
Oh, it was.
It was hideous. I mean, Jake, like Cooper Kupp was getting thrown the ball multiple times over and over again. I wouldn't say that led to his injury, but he was receiving the ball so much. So I will say that.
No, the bad John Wolford pass led to his injury.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I will say Liam Cohen, I think he called Cooper Kupp's number way too much last year. He's not with the Rams anymore, but I think he called Cooper Kupp's number a little bit too much last year. And did he give McCutcheon a chance, right, when it comes to the football and getting it thrown to him? I'm not sure. Is it a Matthew Stafford thing where it's like, hey, McCutcheon's not catching the ball in practice? I'm not sure. We don't know. But what I will say is he gets a chance right now. He gets an opportunity to step up. LaFleur is in there, and that might revitalize him, Jake. A lot of times when it comes to players, if a proper coach is there to pour into them and make them grow, I think that's something to be said. So we'll see what happens now, Jake. But I won't ever say, hey, a guy go down to XFL and play there. I don't want to say that myself because I'm not sure what their insurance and what their opportunities look like at the XFL, right? But what I will say is he did ball out in preseason. I think people do know that. We know that ourselves. Going back to Tyler Johnson, we've seen him ball out at the Super Bowl, and he's been sitting for a couple of years now. So McCutcheon, he might have an opportunity this year, but this is his year, like you said, make or break. If he doesn't ball out this year in the preseason again, he might find himself on another team.
Yeah. And, I don't think that would be the worst opportunity for him either, and I think the USFL, XFL thing is more so if, like, I know a couple guys that have chosen the USFL/XFL over playing the NFL, and here's why. Because the NFL, you kind of get stuck in like a pre-existing pod. Like, you're a special teamer, you can't get any better. So then when I go to the XFL, now I'm putting out tape like, hey, in case you forgot, I'm the best damn wide receiver in the XFL. So I'm not just a special teamer. And there's nothing against special teams, but I hate that, like, this guy can't be anything more. And I always,
AJ McCarron, he went to the Battlehawks, I believe it was, and balled the heck out, right?
Even better. I'll do you one even better. Ready? Taylor Heineke was a third-string quarterback for the St. Louis Battlehawks. He didn't even get a chance to play in the XFL, and then he ends up being a starter. Sometimes you just need something. You need a change of scenery. You need to maybe it's kind of like how employers they want that college degree that I've talked about off air, but that college degree to show you went for 4 years, and it's not necessarily about what you went for, but it's to show you, okay, this person held it out. Life is tough, but they went there and they fought through it. And, maybe that was the case. Like, okay, Taylor Heineke didn't work out for him, and then he goes to the XFL. He's a third-string quarterback. We hear nothing about any negativity. And Jordan Ta'amu that year was awesome. He has never started an NFL game. He was a starter. And Heineke, the third-string guy, goes back to the NFL, and now he's a starting quarterback. He'll be a backup probably to Ritter this year.
But you said it. I think he'll end up being a starting quarterback eventually, though, Jake. That's what I got for Taylor because he won the Old Dominion Heisman, right? And like you mentioned, he's been sitting behind people's shadow, and I think for Ritter better watch out, Jay, because Taylor Heineke, he's that type of guy to come up, sneak up, and make it happen.
Yeah. And I got to give a shout out to my guy, Kyle Sloter, because, I know he's had opportunities in the NFL. And I think the problem is you have a lot of fans that don't understand the USFL and XFL are opportunities. And it's not just, oh, shit, I'm outside of the NFL now. Like, this is my purgatory. That's not true. Like, I know
Right.
people, like I've said, guys like Kyle who have had NFL opportunities, but it's like, do I want to be a third string quarterback in the NFL? Do I want to carry the water? Do I want to be running the scout team? Or do I want to get a chance to really elevate myself, go to the USFL, XFL, be one of the best quarterbacks in that league and stand out and get opportunities to actually play in games? Because I think a lot of the time that we forget, this is perfect. This goes back to what we were saying. Tyler Johnson, Cam, the last time he caught a pass was against the Rams in the divisional round of the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the last time he caught a pass in a regular season, postseason, meaningful game.
That's why the Rams signed him. They were like, hey, you
like, hey,
over here.
I like this guy.
Yeah.
We'll put him on the back burner, get him 2 years from now,
There you go. And that's the thing, too. Going back to your XFL point, Jake, I really like that because even coaches as well, you're seeing coaches revive their careers, on these XFL teams. And I think that has something to say. Son of a bum, right? You talk about some of the Rams coaches. He was in the XFL as well as a head coach. And so you really get to, like you said, revive yourself. It's almost like a G League where it's not like an official NFL G League, but it is like a G League where you get to go down, or a farm league and go down and hone your skills and be seen. And the best part about the XFL, Jake, is you get to work for The Rock. Like, right, you get shouted out by The Rock. Like, that's pretty damn cool. But yeah, Wade Phillips saw son of a bum. But Wade Phillips, one of the coaches out in the XFL, and yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. Like I said, though, my thing, though, coming from a former player, I'm not sure what their insurance policy is. I'm not sure what their benefits policy is. So that will be my only holdup for players that are looking for the XFL. But other than that, like you mentioned, great exposure, great love, and you're playing football at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, that can be a little tricky. And like, as I've gotten to know you, you look at things as more than just the tunnel vision way. You're like, I want to know every aspect of this before I make this decision. So yeah. I think it's absolutely fair. It's very good of you because, we are both of our podcasts, I would say, are a player friendly podcast. I mean, we have a player on here, we support the players, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I think more so looking at it from just a football perspective, it's like a stock game. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, Sloter went from, he had like 10 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions in the preseason. So I've seen this before, and he's gotten absolutely screwed. He's never got an opportunity. There have been guys that haven't been as talented as him who have. They've started multiple games. They've done a horrible job at it. And I think there are guys that never get a chance because they're just that camp arm that you go and like the Case Cookus of the world who won the XFL or, the USFL title last year. And he's just a camp arm. That's how teams look at him. It's like, you want to break that mold. I'm hoping, Luis Perez in what he did in the XFL, he's somebody that can break that mold because I'm tired of that mold. I mean, I always say it, young quarterback, ecosystem is broken in this league. The young player ecosystem is broken in this league. It's just not as bad as, say, the NBA, where if you're drafted in the first round, it's like getting drafted in the 7th round in the NFL draft. But the point still stands, and that going back to Tyler Johnson, like, this is kind of it. So, I mean, guys are dangerous when they get desperate. And, this is somebody age 24. He's still young, but he's already seen the ugliness of this business and how, hey, man, I went from catching passes from the GOAT in the divisional round of the playoffs, which at one point or another was Tom Brady's last game of his career.
Yeah.
I went from that to then I can't even make the Texans, Raiders, the Bucks cut me the next year. That's the ugliness of this business.
Yeah, it's a beast, bro. And I think seeing Baker Mayfield, I think seeing his journey, I think goes to show. I think that gives hope to any football player or just anybody in life. Like, you could be the number one, but you can quickly be number 0, right? You can go from top to bottom, and then you can rise back up. So for Johnson, I really like that for him. I really think he's going to step into his own. I think Mike LaFleur is really going to support him as well. Like I said, we talk about guys that, when they have proper coaching, they can make it happen. And then we talk about the Rams quarterbacks, Jake. Stetson Bennett, I've been seeing some of the, just kind of, we're talking about this quarterback train. Stetson Bennett, right? I'm seeing some of the plays from him in OTAs, and he's looking good. Brett Ripien, him coming from, from the Broncos and just his journey, he's looking good as well. And so you just never know with some of these guys. Even Stetson Bennett, right? He's the backup quarterback. He just won a national championship twice. So he's probably like, man, I know Matthew Stafford's a good guy, but what about me? Let me start. Am I going to take this over in the future? What is that going to look like? So, yeah, I think just the message overall is never give up, because week 1, Johnson, count it as a touchdown, Jake. I think Johnson going to score a touchdown week 1 of the Rams season. So, Camstradamus, write it down now.
All right. Hey, I'm here for that. I mean, look, I think what's important to realize is that the Rams signed Tyler Johnson and Vincent Gray, and neither are considered special team aces. You don't go out and sign a wide receiver or a cornerback, who we're going to get to in a sec here. You don't sign those guys that don't really contribute that much on special teams if you aren't going to use them for what their role is. And to me, Tyler Johnson is 100% going to be a dog fighting in that wide receiver room. He's had success in the preseason in the past. I think he's going to have another good preseason, and I think he'll end up beating out Lance McCutcheon. He'll get ahead of Puka Nacua on the depth chart. And, the signing 15 days after he was cut just tells me that this is somebody that's been on their radar for a little bit.
Yep. They're watching, Jake. They're watching, and like you mentioned, he might have been there for Brady's last couple games, so that's awesome, and hopefully he can revive his career here. And I do think we talk about the Rams team, and I think Sean McVay, he's going to have one of his better years this year, and I think that's just going to reflect for everybody. So I think he's catching this wave at the best moment. Jake, he's catching his wave at the best moment. I actually had a chance to go to Hawaii because my partner is getting married soon, Jake, and that ocean, Mother Nature is a beast. And, when you look at life, I think life can be very similar, right? There's waves, they go up and down. And I think Tyler, he's been on some of these down waves. But I think he's going to catch one of these waves. He's going to surf it. He's going to ball out. So, hey, Rams fans, get excited. Get excited as we are over here.
Yeah, I really, when I saw that pickup, I was out of town. So that's why no video came out about that. But, I actually, my first thought was, that's fascinating. Like, that's actually, that's a move where I'm like, okay, I don't have to do any research because I already know this guy. This is a guy I liked in the draft. And this is a guy that I think just, and keep this in mind, like being with the Bucs. I mean, could you make the argument maybe Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Justin Watson before he left, Scotty Miller. Then you have your tight ends, Gronkowski, Otten last year, although he wasn't on the Bucs list, but you get my point. Brait, guys like that just taking away opportunity. I mean, Fournette, his pass catching out of the backfield, Rashad White, I think that there maybe were just too many cooks in the kitchen, and as a fifth rounder, you don't have that label like play me, right, Right. But like if you were a first round talent, then they probably this year we're gonna focus on getting this guy the rock. But when you're a fifth rounder,
and I think Chris Godwin got hurt too around that time, so I think it was perfect for him. Or even regardless of Chris Godwin was hurt or not, I think.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, for the Buccaneers, he was a great plug and play, regardless if Chris was hurt or not. Like, hey, we have someone else that kind of runs routes kind of like Chris, can move a little bit like Chris, and not saying that he is Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin is a next level receiver. He was leading the league at one point in receptions and yards. So I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, hey, if you have a 2.0 Chris Godwin that can catch the football for this team, convert, get first downs. You talk about those slant routes, finding success. Johnson is him. So Rams, great job. Allen Robinson left. The Rams, we did not win that trade with the Steelers. So the Rams were like, okay, what can we do in the offseason? And we get a guy like Johnson. Great move. I think they're listening to us, Jake, because we need people who can catch the football. Because Matthew Stafford's going to be ready to go come the start of the season.
Yeah, I think he's just, he's somebody you get in there, 200 pounds, 6'1", over the middle. He can make plays after the catch. He's not going to wow you in any way. But, I think he's just going to do the dirty work, and I think he makes the team. But moving on to another guy who I don't think is going to wow you in any way, who's going to do the dirty work, make the team, and potentially start, Vincent Gray, the cornerback that they got off of waivers. When the Rams claim, you listen, because they claimed Larrell Murchison. That worked out well. We're really excited about Larrell Murchison, and not even a full year with the Rams. And we're talking, it'll be a full year at week 7. So, he hasn't been there very long. Yeah, but he came in immediately and was like, 2 sacks.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever had a sack in my career, but 2 sacks.
Yeah, Aaron's hurt. No big deal. Gaines is balling out. Let me go ball out too. That's when Hoyt stepped up. That whole defensive line stepped up around that time. Yeah.
Like Cam just mentioned, Aaron Donald was hurt. So what is he going to do with Aaron Donald? Mm-hmm. That's exciting. See, that's a guy that excites me. You know who else excited me when they claimed him? This guy out of this program that was just kind of up in the air, died, came back to life. He stuck with him, UAB. I'm talking about Darius Williams. Mm-hmm. Darius Williams was this stud that they found. The Ravens found him. Had a great preseason. You have Jimmy Smith, longtime corner, coming back off, I think, a suspension list. And so they have to make the decision. And they cut Darius Williams. But since he didn't have 6 accrued seasons in the NFL, he went on waivers. And they were trying to sneak him on the practice squad. And the Rams are like, homie, don't play that. I'm taking this guy right now. This is going to be our guy. And sure enough, not long after, this guy's a starting corner for your team. He starts in the Super Bowl. We already know the story. So when the Rams claim somebody, I listen. Okay? Yeah. I'm not saying everybody's going to be great, and I've talked about that. Not everybody has been great. But they have made some decent waiver claims. Marquis Christian is another guy who the Cardinals spent a 5th-round pick on out of Midwestern State. And the Rams are like, you know what? We kind of liked him. I think we're going to take him from you. And then we're going to play him. He's going to be not on our practice squad. No. He'll be on our 53. He's going to dress for us, even though he hasn't really done anything with us. And he's going to play against you.
Yeah.
They played him the next they played him the next game. So yeah, I mean, Marquis was somebody, I really liked him. I had a chance to speak with him. Cool guy, safety linebacker, could play linebacker, could play safety. Yeah. Vincent Gray. Let's talk about it since we're kind of going all over the place. Vincent Gray, they claimed. This is the second guy from another team that they've added to the roster.
Yep.
Again, when they claim, I listen. This is a guy that he was rumored to give, what's his face, the wide receiver for the Saints, some fits. I forget his name. From Ohio State, the first rounder.
Olave?
Yeah, he was giving Olave some crap in camp. It was not fun. And some Saints fans like him. Some Saints fans don't. When I look at the tape, he doesn't have the greatest long speed, but neither does De'Aaron Kendrick, and he started 11 games last year, I believe. So this guy is 6'2" size. He's 192 pounds. Great in run support. I'm looking at him. He played a lot of bump and run at Michigan. He was a rookie last year, Cam. He's 23 years old, so he's younger than Tyler Johnson. I'm looking at Vincent Gray like this guy can end up being, he could carve out a role. Yeah. And I don't know if that says more about him or more about my belief in Daren Kendrick and Robert Rochelle. I'll mention this with a caveat. Love Rochelle's long-term upside. But Rochelle went to let's play him his rookie year to let's just have him on special teams when we needed him last year. That was concerning to me, Cam. So I don't know. They do everything for a reason. I think Vincent Gray makes the team, and I think he has a chance to start on the outside opposite Jacoby Durant.
I like that. And the reason why I say I like it, when I was watching him, I know he's 6'2", 182, coming from the Saints. I got to have him as my quiet assassin, Jake. When I watch him, it's not too much flash. It's not too much, like you said, you mentioned that. It's not like this is that guy. He kind of reminds me of a Troy Hill a little bit. Okay, Troy Hill, he's going to be where he needs to be, Jake. He's going to make big plays. And actually, I take that back. Troy Hill, he gets exciting, Jake. I take that back. Troy Hill does get exciting. He's a sticky coverage. Troy Hill can come up and make plays. I think you see games where Troy Hill makes about 8 tackles and he shouldn't be, right? The ball should not be getting that far back. But I do think a guy like Vincent Gray can step in like Troy Hill did, coming on at an undrafted angle and say, hey, I'm going to make this football team. I'm going to be a contributor on the side of the football. I like him a lot. When you watch his tape at Michigan, he's coming up making tackles. I think you mentioned it, but he's coming up and making tackles. He's not afraid to. You'll see him dropping back in coverage, peeling off, and finding the ball carrier and getting them onto the ground. And Troy Hill does that well. And so, like I said, I like that comp here. And you talk about Aubrey Pleasant. Aubrey Pleasant loves a guy like Troy Hill, and I can see why he bought a Vincent Gray over, because he's like, hey, no one's screaming to the mountains about him, but he's a project. He's raw. And I won't even say raw, but I can mold him up a little bit better than he is now. So Vincent Gray, I like him for the Rams, and I think we're going to see him, like you mentioned, he may start, but I think we're going to see him maybe later on in the season, maybe I'll say halfway through, making one of those splash plays that's like, ooh, I'm so glad we picked him up. So I'm gonna call it Vincent Gray's gonna have an interception. I think like halfway game 8, game 9, halfway throughout the season, we're gonna see a guy like Vincent Gray step up. So
yeah. No, I think he's definitely going to make the team, and I think he'll have a role. I think what needs to be said here is that, some might look at this as a little biased. It's Michigan bias. They had, David Long was a pick they liked. I'm going to just trust Aubrey Pleasant, because Aubrey Pleasant has a connection to Michigan that a lot of people don't know, because if you look really quickly, college, Wisconsin, right? But he was a graduate assistant at Michigan. And he went from graduate assistant to then he was an assistant defensive backs coach, and then went into the NFL and was never seen from again by a college team, which is a good thing. That means things worked out.
He's damn good, yeah.
If you think that he doesn't keep track of Michigan, if you think he's not keeping an eye on that, then you're not paying attention.
He just left Michigan. He just left Michigan. He just left the Lions, right? So he wasn't necessarily at the University of Michigan, but he was in that area, I would say, right? So, like you said, he has his eye on Michigan. And Aubrey Pleasant, Jake, I'm not gonna lie, I can see him. I think we bring him up a lot on this podcast. I really like him. I can see him being a head coach, right? In a couple, I won't say now, but maybe 10 or so years, I think he's gonna be one of those Sean McVays where it's like, oh, I didn't know he was on this roster. I didn't know he was on a roster with this person and that person. I think he's gonna emerge to be one of those head coaches that I see, like D'Amico Ryan, one of those type of guys.
I think he was on that track, and then things went awry, to say the least, and now he's back, and I think I agree. I think it's been something where someone I know went to the Coaches Expo, and all he was told from Sean McVay is that basically keep an eye out for Aubrey Pleasant. He's the next best thing in coaching.
Yeah.
So
Wade Phillips, bro. Wade Phillips. When I played for Wade Phillips, we would go into those we would go into the full defensive rooms, and Aubrey Pleasant would take over. Aubrey talk about the pass game, and he would talk to the defensive lineman, Jake, about their drops. He would say, "Hey, take a couple steps forward. Drop back to this landmark, you'll get an interception, I promise you." Right? Linebackers to defensive backs. And the way he broke down the game, the way he simplified it, I loved it. I think Aubrey, we're going to see him rise in the ranks pretty soon here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was let go. He's defensive backs, passing game coordinator, with the Lions, right? Yeah. And, then he gets let go, and he becomes an offensive consultant. And, I think when you look at, say, his Rams position now, this is what he was, with the Lions.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The way I see it is that I think he just needs to get back on that horse. I think he was in a groove and kind of needed a little bit of a reset. And I think going back to where you're comfortable, around who you're comfortable with, I think, definitely ends up helping a lot. So I think he's going to be right back on the head coaching radar. I understand, again, the Lions thing didn't work out that well, but I think he's going to be back on that radar. And
Raheem,
I think
Raheem Morris now. So, hey, he can help Raheem out. That's
exactly.
Thank God. Yeah.
So So yeah, I don't know. That's how I see it. I think this year, I think he's going to be really important to, definitely to the secondary. You got a bunch of young guys. He's going to need to help develop them. These are guys that need to be developed. They need to hit on one of these guys. Daren Kendrick, Robert Rochelle, Vincent Gray, Tamarcus Davis, the UDFA. Like, they need to hit on one of those guys, at least. THT, Travius Hodges-Tomlinson in the slot. Like, they're going to have to figure it out because they're playing a brand of football with the business side of things that is very dangerous. Like, you need to get shit done, or it's going to come back to haunt you.
Yeah, and I think the beautiful part about this with Raheem Morris is he's bringing back Aubrey Pleasant, who knows how Aaron Donald operates. We talk about defense. This is Aaron Donald. So, okay, Aaron Donald's going to be back. He's going to be healthy. Aubrey Pleasant, when Aaron Donald's healthy, what does he like to do? And, like, how does that affect your DBs? And I think Aubrey may know that the best, and I think that's going to really help out Raheem Morris. I do wish, Jake, I do think Jalen Ramsey stays with the Rams, and I think Jalen Ramsey even has a better experience with the Rams if Aubrey Pleasant is there, Jake. I think hands down it would be a better team. So it's nice to see that the Rams have brought him back. And like I said, he's going to be able to complement Aaron Donald. Let Aaron Donald do what he wants, and then DBs. If Aaron Donald goes this way, you go this way, and you get an interception. I think that's going to be one of those things. But it's really good to see, and I have a good feeling about this Rams defense, Jake. I know you were shouting to the moon about Raheem Morris, and I was like, this bend don't break. They're not getting interceptions. I'm not sure about this. And with Aubrey Pleasant, best believe they're going to get some interceptions, some touchdowns, and they're going to be rocking and rolling.
Absolutely. And I think we'll wrap it up with these two things. Speaking of Raheem Morris, just want to shout him out. He saved a drowning child's life in Vegas. AED training clearly on full display. For those of you who don't think it's necessary, well, here you go. It is necessary. And just great stuff from Raheem Morris. And man, I mean, life is so precious. So the fact that he was able to save something or someone's life, it's huge. And so you got to give him his props there.
Jake, I might have to get some AED training as well. I mean, at this point, right? Because the fact that we saw it with DeMar Hamlin, so the league was like, okay, everyone get AED training. You saw videos of players, working on that in the offseason, before I think OTA started, the coaches doing it. And I had to look up AED, like, what does that mean? It's automated external defibrillator. So I think a lot of times you see some of these packages like on airplanes in different places. They're always bright yellow or bright orange. But I think that's a message to the Rams crew, right? Like, we're sharing this about Raheem, but we need to be practicing this ourselves as well. The AED training not only saved this young kid's life, but it goes to show that, hey, if you're taking the steps to not only get better on the field, it's going to help you off the field as well. And clearly that training helped him off the field. So that's a really big compliment to him. And I think he's going to take that energy and he's going to save the Rams' life as well, because the Rams need some saving, Jake. The Rams need to get back to the Super Bowl. And hopefully, like I said, he can take the energy to the field, to the football field, inject that into his team and go win some games.
Absolutely. No, I'm very glad that, everything came out okay, and just scary, man. Very scary. Water scares the shit out of me. It always has. I lost my great-grandparents due to it, and it's just, it definitely hits close to home. For years, I wouldn't even swim because I was so affected by it, and so it's, I mean.
Sorry to hear that.
No, absolutely. It's one of those things. I don't know if you remember WWE superstar Shad Gaspard. He lost his life because of a riptide. You never know. Anybody can drown. It's not, he was an Olympic swimmer. Michael Phelps could drown. You do not realize, like, there are circumstances, like your body could convulse or whatever, and
cramp,
like
anything.
Cramp. Like, that's why it's so important to be smart about where you are, how you're doing whatever you're doing, especially when you're dealing with water, because this stuff doesn't matter if it was a child. Like, it could have been an adult. Like, I got pushed off the high dive when I was young. So there was a lot of traumatic experiences when with water, obviously. But no, just real talk. Like, it's awesome that Raheem saved his life, and it shouldn't just be brushed off like, oh, that's no big deal, because it is a big deal, because there are adults that can swim and die from drowning. Drowning is a serious thing. We need to very much be alert, be careful. You know, if there's no lifeguard on duty, maybe consider not swimming that day. You know, I mean, for real, you know, it's, you never know. It's better safe than sorry, right? I mean, what's the worst that can happen by not going swimming when the lifeguard's not on duty? Now, tell me what the worst thing that can happen when the lifeguard is off duty, right? So just, you know, definitely wanted to throw it out there.
And one other call out to that, Jake, you know, Shaquille Barrett, you know, his daughter passed away from, you know, drowning in the pool as well. So
that's awful.
Like you mentioned, I think the takeaway from this, Jake, I know I just mentioned being in Hawaii and surfing, you know, recently. I think the takeaway from this is, like you said, when you're around the water, I think even for players, for people who listen to this, when you're around the water, be conscious. You know, with Shaquille Barrett, like, I think when it comes to Tampa and the pools, I know they have gates, and I'm not sure if he had a gate up for his daughter, but I think what we're learning in this offseason is a lot of things can happen. So number one, like, be grateful each day. I think that's big, number one. And then number two, like, make sure your folks are good. Make sure your folks are good. Make sure that you're taking care of each other. Make sure that you're present, because you can save lives just by just being there. And not saying that Shaq wasn't, but, you know, I just want to send my condolences to him. Like, since we're on this topic, that's hard. That's hard to hear, right? What Raheem Morris went through, he could have had the same circumstances Shaquille Barrett, but the fact that he had the training, kind of getting back to our original point, the fact that he had the training saved that life. So let's be aware. Let's also be empathetic to what these folks are going through, because it's their livelihoods at stake.
No, absolutely. And I think, you know, it's important to, you know, spread some awareness to it. I think it's good. You know, that's definitely good news that you like to spread. Another thing that's good news is, so the Rams announced the Bill Walsh Diversity Fellowship coaches. I won't go through the entire name, you know, plates or all that, but I will say the interesting ones here, the ones that you guys are going to know. Donte Deayon, who, Cam, he could still play in the NFL today. I mean, I think you could still play in the NFL today, to be fair.
Right.
So, you know, I think, like, because I've seen a lot, like, why is Donte Deayon not on the team? Why is he not playing? I wanted to give you an opportunity to explain why Donte Deayon would maybe not want to go back and play after winning a Super Bowl, because it's a lot of work every single year, training camp. I mean, you're not taking the Ndamukong Suh route. You know, if you're Donte Deayon, you gotta play. You know, you gotta be in OTAs. You gotta play in training camp. You're not guaranteed to make any roster, right? So I mean, this guy, especially at 5'7", short king, not a guarantee. So
Not a guarantee.
From your perspective, like, when you hear, how could Donte Deayon leave the game after winning a Super Bowl? Like, what goes through your mind as somebody that, you know, you left the game a little early, but you got your time in there and you did a lot of work.
Yep. I think the beautiful part about it is, you mentioned, why did he leave the game? I think he's even making the game better with this move, right? Because he's staying close to it by coaching. He's making it better, and he's already won his championship. So once you win that chip, you're 5'7". I think when you're 5'7", you're that size going to the league, Jake, you're always thinking about that plan B, that second option. For me, I was 6 feet tall. So I was like, okay, I got to have a parallel career path here. I got to start doing broadcasting. I got to start building up my career, because I'm 6 feet tall in the NFL. Who knows how long I will last for? With his case, he won a Super Bowl. He's 5'7". He reached his ultimate goal since he was 2. So it's like, all right, I reached my ultimate goal. Now what? Now what does life look like? Okay, well, let me go serve the game and make a game even better from where I found it. Let me go make sure that the other 5'7" guy can get the tools that I have to go win a Super Bowl. So I think not only is him leaving the game smart at this time, but he's even making the game even better. So I think it's a double, you know, hat tip right to him. It's like, hey, man, you got what you needed. You knew when to say, you know, when to stop. Some folks don't. You think about Tom Brady. Could he have stopped a little bit earlier, Jake? To be honest, I think he probably should have stopped a little bit earlier. So, you know, I think it takes more courage to stop playing football and to do something else, because people explain this, Jake. When you change jobs, when when I think there's these big moments in your life happen, people say for football, when you stop playing football, it's almost like a death in the family or a death in your life because it was a part of your identity. So the fact that he won a Super Bowl, he stopped playing football, so there was that death, that death experience, and then able to revive himself and support the game. Some guys, when they leave the game, they don't want nothing to do with football. So, like I said, you'll see a guy like him being in the front office of the NFL at some point, being a GM of a football team because he's won a championship. He knows what it takes, and he's also pouring back into the game. So I love that move by him.
Yeah, no, I like it as well. And I think this is something for a while that we kind of thought would be, a possibility. He's going to coach the cornerbacks. And, we saw this, KJ Black last year. He was one of he had the fellowship program as well. He's still on the roster. And, I think Donte Deayon, what I'm really excited about and where I think this becomes more than just cool news, where this becomes potentially decently big news, is that guess who he's going to be coaching, Cam? A guy that some people kind of think reminds them a little bit of him. And that's Travius Hodges-Tomlinson. So, getting a chance to get under the hood, talk and coach up a 5'8", 5'7", type of corner. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's
Kobe Durant, right? Like he has someone to coach him up as well. Someone who thinks this, like it's only going to benefit the Rams. You got a Super Bowl caliber winner to help, your defensive backs. Aaron Donald's back, so he probably knows how Aaron Donald plays and what he wants. So it's just Aubrey Pleasant has someone. Yeah,
this dude was loved in the locker room. He's loved by fans, but he was loved by players. So you get that guy back in the organization, and I think it's nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, agreed.
Another guy I'll throw out there is your buddy, Mr. Legend, Daren Bates, who's got himself. He's got himself a podcast. We'll say that. I've been seeing. I've been watching that, man.
I actually helped him start that, Jake. I actually helped him start that podcast.
Oh, really? That's
awesome. It was originally part of the starting group of the CEO group, and then I kind of, once I saw, like, hey, y'all got started, y'all doing y'all's thing, I kind of passed on my ownership and made moves there. But yeah,
that's really cool. I had no idea.
Yeah. The Raw Room though, check it out.
Yeah, like Jalen Collins is on it. I know there's some other guys that rotate in, but
comedians, yeah,
it's funny because like Daren talks about some like out there type of stuff, and it's just it makes me laugh. So I don't have a chance to really watch a ton of podcasts because we're recording all the time and doing research and making videos, making other content. But when I get a chance to look down and watch something and truly appreciate it, I remember it, and I appreciated watching, Daren Bates. He's a funny dude. Yeah. Which is, that's what it's all about. I don't want Daren Bates through the lens of, wearing a suit and sounding like he's a robot. I want Daren Bates sounding like Daren Bates.
Right.
So he's going to be a special teams coach. He's going to work with, the Chase Blackburns of the world. He's going to work with Springer as well. So that'll be a fun unit. I think it's going to be great to have him with the Rams. Kind of weird too, because I don't think he ever, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think he ever played with the LA Rams. I think he was just in St. Louis, and then he went to the Titans afterwards, after 2015. But he's another fan favorite.
Yeah, DB. Hey, Mr. Jumping on line of scrimmage, right? He has it on his Twitter. I actually sent him a text before this podcast. You sent me the coaching fellows, and I sent him a text like, "Hey, let's go," and sent him a message. But Daren Bates, he a mentor for me when I played football. You talk about special teams, having an edge, having swag, and playing with reckless abandonment. He is that. I think John Fossil, we call him Coach Bones. He's now the Cowboys. He's someone that coaches both up. So I'm sure Daren's going to be calling Coach Bones like, hey, what's that stunt y'all Hollis running on kickoff again, and doing different things like that. But I do think you're going to see a different Rams team. You're going to be seeing people fighting on the football field, which you want to see, right? And within the line of scrimmage, though, within the whistle, you're going to see more physicality. You're going to see people getting knocked on the ground. as in the other team, because, for example, Jake, like we play special teams with Bates, like we were told if we get points if we knock people down on the ground. And so we made it a point in our locker room, right? Like knock people on the floor, get bodies on the ground. And so you're going to see a lot more of that. And of course, in the realm of the game, but you're going to see a chippier team. You're going to see a special teams. You're going to see a team that's dancing probably on kickoff. You're going to see a lot of cool stuff because they're going to take on what Daren brings to the game.
Yeah, no, that I'm actually really excited about that, and we should try to get him on. That would be really cool, like to get his thoughts and the whole fellowship thing, because that's going to be great for him. And he also has the podcast, so I mean the dude's living life right now. And then Corey Legit, I wanted to mention because he's somebody that like I think some of the other guys, Chucky Keaton, Vontrell King Williams, and Kyle Washington. Kyle Washington sounded familiar, but I don't think he's the Kyle Washington I'm thinking of. I don't think he's the one that took a football to the knee. I
think so.
I don't think that's him.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but
that because I mean, do you remember the whole you remember the game Skyrim?
Yeah.
So
I get sick off of that game, by the way, because of all the movement and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like visually, I get sick. Yeah.
That was the greatest game of all time, in my opinion. But but there was a thing I forget what it was. Oh, I used to be an adventurer like you, but then I took an arrow to the knee, and it was like this big meme, and it went all over the internet and all that. And so I think it was Kyle Washington, if I'm not mistaken. It was a different name, Kyle something. Then the 49ers were going to the Super Bowl, but then they took they took a football to the knee, and it was a muffed punt that hit his knee, and so the Giants advanced to the Super Bowl.
Brutal.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was that Kyle Washington. That was a while ago. That was the second time I think they played the Patriots.
But I think this Kyle might have played.
No, he's got to be younger. Yeah, because I don't feel like the fellowship program makes sense for, like, if he played in 2012 or whatever, or what? When did they?
Yeah, I think for the Bill Walsh piece, I think you have to have stopped playing within a certain amount of years. I think that is for that, because I've been so this Bill Walsh program is put on by the NFL. And they basically is the NFL Legends program. And I actually worked in that program through player marketing, but they provide different programs for players that are transitioning. So I think you have to be finished playing between, 1 and 5 years. So I do believe some of these. Kyle Williams. Got it. Okay. Different guy. Okay. I think this Kyle Washington played quarterback at Angelo State.
So he already was a Ram.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. And I know he's coaching the wide receivers. So quarterback, wide receivers, it's a good matchup there. But Jake, I think this program is going to be great for these guys to transition. I know Daren Bates is doing his podcast, and I'm sure what he's going to quickly find out is when it comes to media, they don't pay unless you make it to the big stage, right? Right away. Not everybody can be a Nate Burleson right away, but this is going to be good for him to transition. And I think it's going to show that hey, there's different routes to the game than just playing football, right? You can be a coach, you can podcast, you can do different things. So I love this for him and this group.
Yeah. And then Corey Legit, who's a former first-round pick in the 2011 NFL draft. He played a bunch of years. He played 8 years with the Chargers, played a year in Buffalo, a year with Houston, a year with Oakland, who no longer exists. That's really weird to say. But he last played age 30, 2020. With Houston. Mm-hmm. So he's been out of the game for a little bit, but he had 26 sacks in his career, had almost 300 tackles. He started 104 games in the NFL. Happy for him.
He knows a little something.
Yeah, that's cool stuff, but I like it. I think it's really cool, and I think with players, and I'm not trying to like gatekeep from people that haven't played the game, right? But I think it's cool to have like certain guys you just know should be coaches. Yeah. And I think it's cool to give former players that opportunity. Just because they already gave so much to the game, it's like giving it back, There
you go.
I feel like, and again, like I said, I'm not trying to gatekeep anybody that didn't play in the NFL like from coaching. because I mean, there are some coaches that didn't play in the NFL, but
Yeah.
you know, I think it's definitely fair for what, like, you as a player, what you've put out. You know, I think it's fair to have that opportunity if you want
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. To build the game. I think that's important. I mean, Singletary was a coach for us, right? When I was at the Rams, he came in and coached for us, a legendary linebacker that played for the Bears, right? And so to see somebody like that we looked up to, that our parents looked up to, come back and coach us, I'm sure these young guys in the Rams have seen Daren Bates' tape and like, oh, that's the guy that jumped the line of scrimmage and blocked those kicks. And now they had to put a rule against it, right? And so having someone coach you like that, that's going to give you that much more energy, and that's going to give the Rams that much more pop. So yeah, man, it's a good deal.
So, Cam, I think that's going to wrap it up. We had a lot planned, but we covered so much, and we just kept talking, and there's just so much to, you know, you're thinking, oh, it's just, you know, Tyler Johnson, and it's just Vincent Gray. And then you're like, well, it's the conversations that go along with it. And I think they were very productive. So we'll push the other stuff we had planned for the show to another day. We'll wrap it up with this brand new segment, the featured Ram of the day. And that is going to be defensive lineman for the LA Rams, Reggie Doss. Now, I actually, believe it or not, so Reggie Doss, you know, 7th round pick, 189th overall, 1978 draft by the Los Angeles Rams. Played his whole career with the Los Angeles Rams. And, of course, he won an NFC title. They played in a Super Bowl his second year against, I think his third year, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And everyone knows they unfortunately lost that game. But I met Reggie at Leroy Irvin's 60th birthday party. And I actually tried on the Rams NFC title ring. He let me try it on.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Leroy.
Yeah, Leroy is awesome. We definitely got to get him on. He's been on my one of my shows like 4 times. Like I've met him. He invited me to his party. I'm barely ever in LA, and he's like, "Hey, are you around to come to my 60th birthday?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I was there with my father and a bunch of the guys from the 1979 NFC title team, and you know it was really cool. And Cephas Witherspoon was there. Who actually, you know, he played a little bit for the Saints, and the Saints owner, and you're going to like this. Let's just say they don't deserve anything less than an A for the way they treat their players after winning a Super Bowl. Because when they won the Super Bowl, they gave a Super Bowl ring to every single New Orleans Saints player ever in their history. So,
wow.
I tried it on. Like, he gave it to me. Cephas Witherspoon gave it to me. And I tried on the Saints Super Bowl ring, and I just think that's just so cool. It's something that I don't think I'll ever forget, and I won't forget his name either because, you know, he was fun to talk to, and, you know. But anyway, the whole point, you know, giving love to Reggie Doss. I mean, the guy started 89 games. He played 149 games for the LA Rams, rocking big 71. He had 8 fumble recoveries. And, you know, this is somebody with 31 sacks. He was important to their defensive line, man. You know, he was important to that team. Very well liked by, you know, his teammates, very well liked by the fans. And, you know, big ups to Reggie Doss.
Yeah, Leroy, highlight Leroy. You know, big thanks to making everybody's life better. And I think that goes to show is you never know who you're impacting. So treat everybody properly. And then Mr. Doss, happy birthday.
From Mobile, Alabama. And it's not his birthday. I was just shouting him out. But
oh, sorry. I think we're doing the off the edge stuff, right? When we do the birthday segment. I thought it was his birthday.
Yeah, no. Just like a feature for the Ram stuff. Because I don't know if, like, would we have a Ram birthday every single time we do it? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, we would, because if we want to give a shout, we already did on Off the Edge. Happy birthday to Lawrence McCutcheon.
There you go, McCutcheon.
So yeah, but yeah, Reggie Doss, Reginald Lee Doss is our highlighted Ram of the day. That's gonna do it for us. Be sure to follow Cam at Cameron Lynch 50 on Twitter. Follow me at JK Bogan on Twitter. You can follow the Off the Edge show, if you would like. I don't know why. I'm just going along with it.
Hey, we talk about Bleav in Rams Off the Edge all the time, so
it's true.
It's all good.
At Off the Edge on Twitter. You can also subscribe to our Off the Edge channel if you want to check out all of that NFL content. It will also be posted on this channel if you're watching on my channel. And yeah, that's going to do it. Special thanks to betonline.ag, and we'll see you guys soon. Later, folks.
Peace.